Welcome to Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery, a conversation held at the intersection of substance abuse, mental health, and everyday living. Your hosts, Marc Regala and Justin Wolf, bring both professional expertise and personal understanding to the table. So welcome to the conversation. Let's dive in.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. I'm your host, Justin Wolf, joined by my co-host, Marc Regala, and we have a guest today, Kelsey Dunbar. He is a health coach who's going to be joining us and speaking with us about what he does and why it is so important to help people maintain their mental wellness, especially while we're here during Mental Health Awareness Month. And without further ado, we need to have our check-in with Marc. And Marc, how are you doing, good sir?
I'm doing really good. Ending of May, been a busy Mental Health Awareness Month. NAMI just had their gala on May 17th. That was very well attended for their 40th anniversary. Been doing some speaking at churches, various hospital presentations. It's been a very busy, very educational month, which is good because, as we know, the general public needs to be educated when it comes to this stuff. So I think we've done a really good job this month of providing that education to the general public.
That's awesome. And I think one of the things that we kind of miss out on, or maybe it's just me that misses out on, is really just acknowledging, and I think all our guests that kind of listen to this know, or maybe they don't know, just how active Marc is in the community. I mean, Marc runs around like just educating, supporting, and just really trying to be present for those who really are in their time of need. And so, Marc, I think it just goes without further ado, just that, I mean, you need to be acknowledged for this, man. I think it's just incredible. So where do you find this drive? Do we have to kind of go back to past episodes to kind of reconnect with that? Or is there a secret that you're kind of holding on to there?
No, I mean, it's pretty much everything we talked about. I mean, I think it's fair to say, and if people follow these podcasts, they would know, that I wouldn't be sitting here talking to all of you if it wasn't for people like myself right now in recovery that showed me the way. I mean, I was introduced to NAMI while I was hospitalized, and a gentleman came in and spoke and shared his story. I've been very active in AA. Like I said before, there's been a number of individuals because I was a special case that kind of showed me the way. And I just feel that it's, my moral responsibility to provide that education and kind of pass it along. And, I will say, from the time I got sober, which was, really during COVID to now, it just feels like a snowball with this mental health crisis and addiction crisis that's going on in the country. Specifically as well as here in Northern Illinois and the Chicagoland area, it just seems like there's such a demand for people that need help. Whether it's them reaching out on Facebook Messenger or shooting me a text, or when you do visit the hospitals and you see the amount of patients that are in the hospital on a regular basis now versus what it was when I was in the hospital dealing with my issues, it's there's definitely a storm out there right now. And I feel that people were there for me to help me not die and show me the way and live a life of recovery. And I enjoy doing that and helping people and let them know that there is a way out of what they're dealing with, through the education and through the help and through the assistance and through the resources that are available out there. That's all.
No, I mean, that's incredible, especially when you're talking like Mental Health Awareness Month. I mean, I think that's just kind of what you do, man. You just kind of carry the message and show, hey, this storm that you're in right now that feels like it's never going to end, like, hey, there's a way out. And I think that's what you've been able to do is kind of provide a light to people in their time of darkness and say, hey, just kind of follow this. So we'll be able to kind of pass through here.
Not only is there a way out, but the life on the other side typically is so much better than the life that you were living before. And I think that's important for people to understand, whether that's me or people that I've helped, whether they're living a life of recovery on a mental health diagnosis or a dual diagnosis with the addiction side. You talk to some of the individuals that are sober and they've got decent stretches of sober. I mean, the way that they look at life, in fact, Kelsey and I were kind of talking a little about this before you jumped on. I mean, just the way you perceive life and the way you look at life is completely different. When you come out on the other side, you just got a new appreciation of things and you got a peace and you got a calmness and you got a serenity that you never once had before.
Definitely. No, and I think all this kind of ties into what Kelsey can kind of share with us and kind of speak on, specifically as a health coach, looking at that connection between our mind and our mood and the way we're feeling, as well as our body, and how this all kind of is interwoven. So, Kelsey, would you mind kind of sharing with everybody a little bit about your story before we kind of dive into what you do, but kind of what got you into this?
Okay, so and it's so appropriate that we're doing this in mental health awareness month because I've kind of got it coming from a bunch of different angles. I grew up as a child of both a mother and a stepfather who were alcoholics. My uncle died of alcoholism. My mom died of alcoholism, liver failure, and so at a young age, I kind of had to make a decision. I think that people kind of don't realize that the missing link for alcoholism genetically is you're genetically predisposed to needing high levels of dopamine. That's something that actually is genetic. I mean, not necessarily the alcohol addiction, but what inspires the alcohol addiction is to just have that addictive personality. And I definitely had that as a child from one addiction to another, but I stayed away from alcohol simply because I got to see at a young age what that was doing to the people around me. So I was fortunate that I realized that early on, but I still had to witness it every day of my life. My parents coming home at wee hours of the morning, me trying to wake up my stepfather from the kitchen table to get him to go to bed because he was slumped over like this. And I knew he was going to wake up the next morning and have a stiff neck and be hurting and then be all upset, pissed off, whatever, at everybody else because we didn't tell him to go to bed, that kind of stuff. I mean, that was kind of how I grew up. And then also my addiction, what became eating. And so the eating led to me being significantly overweight. And by the time that I graduated high school, I was over 300 pounds with, I believe I was about a 54-inch waist at that time, if you can kind of fathom that. I started slipping into a depression and basically kind of took a look in the mirror one day and I said, you know what, I'm going to try for one last time to lose this weight to try to get my life back. And if I'm not successful, I'm going to take my life. I was ready.
Yeah.
So I had definitely every day I woke up going, is this the day that I'm going to decide that it's my last day? And that was like almost a regular occurrence. Like people brushing their teeth is, you look in the mirror, you brush your teeth. Me, I was looking in my mirror going, is this the day I end it? And, but fortunately I was able to lose weight. I was able to see the benefit of proper nutrition, fitness, what that did for my mind. And honestly, I hadn't really given a whole lot of thought to how that worked for people fighting an alcohol addiction because I didn't really think of myself as being a food addict. But, you can be addicted to all sorts of different things. And by talking to Marc, realized even though we went to high school together, we didn't really know each other in high school. But we went to the same high school. We had some friends in common. But so we knew of each other, but really weren't friends. And just in the past couple of years, sitting down and talking to him, we had so much more in common than we ever realized. And I wish we would have, became the same kind of fast friends that we've become since, because I've learned a lot from Marc. And so now I want to dive headfirst into how what I've learned to help people with food addictions, how it could help people in recovery. And so I've been researching, things that are so similar from one addiction to another, and how it can help, with regulating blood sugar levels. People do that to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
So that they lower the levels of insulin, and so therefore they don't have insulin resistance, and then they can burn fat faster. Those are people trying to lose weight. Well, guess who that also helps? Mm-hmm. That helps people who are in recovery, because that stabilizes your blood sugar levels, which stabilizes your mood. It sequesters cravings. So a lot of the things that have worked for my weight loss clients, I think are going to work really well for people going through addiction. And when you talk to Marc about things that he did with his nutrition that led him to his success in recovery, it's the same thing as I'm doing with my weight loss clients. And so him and I are actually working on a program right now that we're going to put out, and it's probably, and by the time that this podcast drops, it should already be ready to go. So anybody who's listening to this podcast, if you jump in the comments and say, I'm interested in finding out about the program, I'll get in touch with you and I'll get you information about that. But I'm super excited about it. It's going to have to do with, affirmations, mindset, meditation, food, workouts, possibly even some basic yoga, stuff like that, all incorporated. And it's going to be accountability based. So it's going to be people like Mark and I through a Facebook group that we're going to be helping people, anyone who wants to be helped, and going to be getting them a program that can really help benefit them in recovery. So you guys, as like a therapist like yourself, you're working with them on the mental side, and Mark and I can work with them on the physical side, and just the accountability and the affirmations and telling everybody how great of a job they're doing. And I think that that's going to be a great combination to help people moving forward. So that's why I decided to jump on today when Mark offered, because I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, Justin, is it's weird. We've talked about this so many times on this podcast, like how your circle morphs and how people are introduced to your life. I mean, there are so many people that I went to high school with that I barely even talked to. I mean, some I never even talked to. They graduated years after me, or a couple years prior. And for whatever reason, because maybe I'm honest and transparent on Facebook, and I mean, I'm about as blunt can be, and as transparent can be with everything that I've been through. Through word of mouth, I've been introduced to some of these people, and yeah, I mean, it is true. I knew of Kelsey. We might have said hi in passing. Okay. I didn't know anything about his adult life. I didn't know he was a fitness coach. I didn't know he completely transformed his body. It really was through a mutual friend that I helped get on the path of sobriety, and he would actually, if Kelsey posted like a positive meme that this gentleman felt that I would benefit from or that I can relate to, he would like tag me in the comment, and then I would share my memes, on Facebook, and then he would tag Kelsey in the comment, and one day we just started talking. It's just kind of like how we talked about before with how your circle just morphs, and it morphs to people that have similar beliefs, similar lifestyles, similar live life experiences. I had no idea of his upbringing. I had no idea of his struggles. We just started talking one day, and there's a lot of similar beliefs when it comes to recovery. And, and addiction is an addiction. I mean, addict, everybody wants to talk about it being a nasty, dirty word. I mean, an addiction, basically, in my opinion, is a symptom of an underlying mental health condition. That's really what it comes down to. And an addiction can be anything. I mean, yes, the obvious is drugs, alcohol. We've talked about gambling, sex, hoarding, eating, whatever it might be. Any obsessive nature that you have typically is a form of self medication for something that's burning or missing on the inside. That's what my findings have been, living a life of recovery, talking to different people, speaking at the hospitals and so forth. So when him and I started talking about some of this stuff, and he was talking about the eating and I was talking about my drug and addictions and alcohol addictions, it's like, again, it was like that aha moment. It's like literally everything that he did, I'm doing to combat a very different form of addiction. But again, an addiction's an addiction.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, and I think you kind of hit it there, where it's like both you guys were kind of sharing earlier, about the emotional pain, about what you experienced and what you went through, and kind of like how that manifested through what you were seeking out. And so, like, a lot of times, like, and I'm just wondering, because, like, Kelsey, you were talking about, like, working with weight loss, individuals looking to lose weight, and kind of like the work that you did on yourself to kind of go from where you were to really try to commit to losing weight is a completely different like frame of mind in the way in which you had to start like relating and engaging and interacting with yourself. So I'm wondering, man, for you, because you were kind of with what you shared, what was that like flip in that mind frame for you to go from kind of engaging in this behavior, habitually, to now saying, you know what, I need to kind of take a step back and focus on actually taking care of myself in a way that helps me move forward the way I want to move forward. How was that like transition for you, man?
Like I said, I mean, the decision got pretty easy when it was life or death. I mean, when you're faced with a life or death situation, you don't really know how you're going to react going into it.
Mhm.
But for me, it was almost like I was looking for a justification. It was like, okay, so if I try and do everything, and as people who are overweight, a lot of them say, "Oh, I have a slow metabolism, or I have an underactive thyroid, or things like that." And some people do. And then there are some people that think they do just because they have trouble losing weight, and they might be predisposed to gaining weight easier than some other people. I mean, obviously, genetics, it's all individualized, right? But when you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, have I done what I felt like I needed to do in order to lose this weight? And if the answer is no, okay, so now let's try and figure out what I'm supposed to do. And if I do that and it still doesn't work,
Mhm.
then I just wasn't meant to live a long life, because I can't go on living being this miserable. So it was almost like I was trying to justify taking my own life by saying, okay, I want to at least be able to say I gave this a good try. And the more I tried, the more results I got. And then the happier I got. And then, it just kept on going like that till finally I was like, man, that was such a rough go for me that I can't imagine how many other people there are out there that are feeling this way. And I didn't have any help to do it. But man, if I could help somebody else, like that would just make me feel so much better, that knowing that I saved other people from that kind of misery like I had to withstand for a good number of years, and basically something that took away my childhood from me and my young adulthood that I'll never get back.
Definitely. No, and imagine like, especially when you're kind of going down that road of losing weight. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
So like that persistence in sticking with it when you're not getting that instant gratification, like that is such a testament, right, to that persistence that had to be employed there. How do you kind of like, take what you went through and give that to the clients that are coming to see you who maybe feel hopeless or helpless that, anything's going to change or it's going to look different? What do you provide them?
Okay, so the best thing that I can do for myself and encourage other people to do is count the smallest of wins.
Mhm.
Like if you get up 15 minutes earlier and go for a 15-minute walk, and you do that even 3 times a week, that's 3 times this week that you did something productive for yourself that you didn't do last week. So no matter how small it is, like I skipped dessert tonight. Okay, well, I mean, like if I was a person that had dessert every single night, if I skipped a dessert, one night, and then I said, you know what, I'm going to try and do this at least every other night. And then eventually you just find other things when I work with coaching, which I do both in person and online coaching, so that way I can coach people all around the world. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. And when I'm talking to my coaching clients, I just say, what are our wins? What did you do yesterday that you're proud of? What did you do last week that you're proud of? And then what were your struggles? How can we turn those struggles around? How can we turn those into wins this next week? So it's just one step at a time, but it's definitely counting the small wins, not just looking at, I've got 100 pounds to lose. It's taking forever to get there. It's like, yeah, but if you've already lost 50, you're halfway there. I know, but it took me a year to do that. Well, how many years did it take you to put it on in the first place?
Exactly.
It's that type of mindset.
Definitely. No, and I think you just gave a great example about how like you can kind of like support people and not reinforce like that inner voice that's hypercritical. Because like that critic and that judgment can be there and it can just be paralyzing for people making changes to move forward that's aligned with actually their goals that they have. How did you learn to do that to support your clients? I mean, you're not trained as a therapist, so like where did you kind of pick up on that skill set?
I think just the more that you talk to people that are suffering, and for me, it's always been. It's funny because a lot of times you look at personal trainers in a gym, or you look at some guy that's on the cover of Men's Health or Men's Fitness or something like that, and you find out that they're a personal trainer, and you think, oh well, everyone wants to work out with that guy because he's in such great shape. Like I want to be like that guy; he can teach me how. And the more that people realize that he's never had a weight problem, so he can't relate at all to what you're dealing with. Whereas somebody who's a personal trainer, and I just celebrated in April my 30 years of being a personal trainer. So
Oh,
I've been doing this
nice.
for 30 years. The average life expectancy for a personal trainer, 5 years.
Oh.
So I've done 30 years in this business, and it's mostly because I have been relatable. When people talk to me, just like with Mark, how he was just talking about how, people open up to him. They want to talk to him because he's real, he's transparent. And so he asked me before the podcast, is there anything you don't feel comfortable talking about? And I said, I can't be in the business that I'm in and not be open to other people. Because if they're going to be open to me, I need to be willing to be open to them. So just talking to them about my struggles and what I did to help myself to lose weight and start feeling better about myself and being more positive about life and looking for all of the great things in life and not thinking of things as a setback, but more as an obstacle to overcome.
I mean, there's so many parallels here. You start talking about this live life experience thing, pretty well documented. And again, I say this, and it's no knock on the professionals, but I mean, there is no book, there's no education that can prepare you, for somebody, for what somebody's dealing with unless you've walked a mile in their shoes, man. I mean, that's just what I firmly believe. Because I talk to therapists, I talk to psychiatrists, I talk to so many damn people. And it was that one gentleman that has 17-year battle with heroin that was living a life of recovery and spoke to the hospital. And like I said, he just spoke in a different language that I was able to pick up on in a matter of 2 seconds. You can tell this guy walked the walk. He knew the battle. He was using verbiage and was describing things that he was going through that no therapist or no psychiatrist was able to describe to me. He had street creds. He was speaking a street language that I completely understood. And, when I went up to him afterwards, after he spoke, and he told me the things I needed to do, I was willing to do anything and everything that man told me to do because I knew it worked because I had a full description of the battle that he fought. And the battle that he fought was very similar to the battle that I was fighting. And I figure if he can do it, he provided that little hope and inspiration that up until that point was missing, and he provided that to me. And if I work hard enough, I can do this and have that. And that's really what catapulted me. So when he's working with the client, that does need to lose 100 pounds, he's been there. He knows what it takes, he knows the struggles early on, when you're getting up and going to the gym and you don't have that instant gratification. But he also knows how to stay the course, control the day, live that one day at a time, you know, positive affirmations. Everything that we talk about in drug and alcohol recovery, it's the exact same principles. I mean, there's direct parallels there, Justin. And that's why when we started talking, it's like, man, everything just clicked.
Absolutely.
Right. I think it kind of like aligns, Mark, very closely with what you've kind of identified really has been helpful for you. And I think that's just kind of like very common what you guys are both doing in terms of just like the services that are being provided, which are really helpful and really supportive of people, especially in those moments where it's like, hey, the idea of change is terrifying for people, even if it's in the direction of the change that they want. Right? Because it's like, hey, you can't promise me or guarantee me that this is actually going to make things better, or that this is going to work. And so I think that's really helpful to kind of employ, especially when we talk about like anxiety or depression being interwoven in throughout this, especially when we're talking about, the underlying mental health condition that's being manifested through somebody physically, carrying some extra weight or physically being really not their most healthy version of themselves, right? And so, Kelsey, you want to kind of share a little bit, man, about like kind of like how have you kind of what have you kind of seen be really helpful for people who maybe come in and they are struggling with that major depressive disorder where they are having a hard time eating, or they are an emotional eater, or they don't eat at all? Like, how do you share about some of your experiences that you've had to kind of help support people there?
Yeah, I mean, so much of it is, and this is why it's funny to have this conversation where if Mark and I didn't talk about our specific subject matter, that you wouldn't even be able to tell that we were talking about two different subject matters.
Correct.
Because, if somebody wants to recover from alcohol addiction and all that goes with it, they just have to stop drinking. I mean, That's it. They just have to stop drinking, right? People who are trying to lose weight, they just have to stop eating, right? Or they have to get more active, right?
Mhm.
I mean, we can all find apps. We can all look up on Chat GPT, like, hey, what can I do to? I mean, like the information's out there. You know what isn't out there? Accountability, motivation, mindset, affirmations. Like you have to look inside of you to find those things. And for us as coaches, we have to bring that out of people.
Right.
So that's what we do that is different than what any app could ever do. You know, what any kind of AI can do is to get people to look inside themselves and to help them navigate their way through trying to put together a path forward
Right.
and to keep them accountable while they're on it.
Yeah. No, and I think you're kind of talking about, just being genuine with people, like, and just kind of making them feel safe. Because
Mhm.
you're talking about, you look at this behavior, right? Like this behavior a lot of times is employed because it is helping an individual feel safe, right? There is that kind of like, there's that sense of security in that behavior in terms of what it's being used for, right? And so we look like, what's the function? And you're telling me like, hey, I got to let go of this. And you're going to kind of give me this, that, or the other. Like, what are you giving me to replace this? Because I just can't let this go and have nothing to kind of fill this void that it's been filling.
Yeah, and that's actually where the exercise comes in big time. You know, for people who are trying to replace that time in their evening where they would generally be at a bar or they would be at home drinking, or in my case with weight loss, sitting around eating, and having that as a social activity. Instead, it's like, hey, grab your sibling, grab your friend, grab your neighbor, go to the gym or invite them over for a workout. I give people workouts that they can do with just their body weight. I have a lot of people that travel for work and I have to give them body weight only workouts because they never know what the gym is going to be like at whatever hotel they're staying at. So it is, I do provide them something to replace the food addiction, the socialization that comes with eating and drinking, with the exercise component. And I tell them, you're not going to feel better from having a drink or from eating a piece of pizza than you feel at the end of a workout when you have that sense of accomplishment of what you just did and how good for you that actually was. That hit of dopamine is going to far surpass whatever hit of dopamine you're going to get from that drink or that hamburger.
Right. No, and I think that's a big challenge, right? Because your mind has kind of like been geared and been reinforced to kind of go down that same path that has traveled down so many times. So to kind of go down a different path and say, oh my gosh, there are other options out here. There
Absolutely.
are other ways to kind of get these needs met in a way that's different than the way I've been getting that met. Like that is incredibly rewarding and powerful. And seeing that, hey, like, how do I do that again now? How do I keep moving in that direction? And I think it's kind of aligned with what you guys were saying, right? Like that, the accountability piece, but not just so much external accountability, but like that self accountability, which is kind of, I think, ties in what you said earlier with like affirmations, where it's like, hey, I really care enough about me to say that I'm going to allow myself, to make mistakes in this journey because it's naturally going to happen. I might eat something I don't intend to, or I might skip a day because I'm tired. And it's recognizing that I can let it end at that day, right? It's not going to be a bad week. It might be a bad day. And then that bad day isn't going to be a bad day. It's going to be a bad moment or a bad hour. And then it's just kind of over time learning how to kind of recognize this, be aware of it. Just like when our symptoms like queue up and start flaring up, where it's emotionally driven behavior that we are then having to learn to kind of recognize and take a step back and ask ourselves, why do I want to do this right now? What is this being kind of employed for? Why am I kind of choosing to turn off my phone, isolate? Why do I not want to kind of continue to do these things that I recognize are actually helpful for me? Is it that voice in my head that's getting super critical? Is it that nervousness and anxiety that I'm going to be around other people? Because I imagine, Kelsey, a big part of like what you encounter is like a lot of like social anxiety when you talk about going to the gym and working out and being in a place where other people could possibly watch. Like I hear that as like a big turnoff from people actually going into the gym. So what do you do when people are coming out there saying like, you don't have a private studio where it's one-on-one and like nobody else is seeing me? Like, how do you help your clients work through that anxiety that peaks up?
Yeah, so I do have a training studio out of my home that I work with some people. So I mean, for some people, but I would say that I'm actually probably more on the online side now.
Okay.
But what has allowed me to do that is the people who would rather work out on their own, who would rather stay out of a gym, and I can put together workouts for them, build routines for them that have little video thumbnails for every exercise that they can look at in case they need a refresher on what this exercise is, and they can perform it in their own house, whether it's body weight, bands, dumbbells, really simple stuff that's pretty inexpensive. It doesn't take up a lot of space. So I can't get that excuse from people of like, oh, I don't have money to buy expensive equipment, or I don't have room for expensive equipment. Everything that I can work with somebody with, I can probably fit in their hall closet. But more to your point though, is a lot of times you have to kind of find out what's more important to the person that you're coaching. Intrinsic versus extrinsic goals. So basically, for those that don't know what that is, basically, the goals of, hey, I want to lose this weight versus, hey, I want to feel good about myself and the fact that I'm doing something positive for my health. So it's the internal versus external type of goal set. And you kind of find out what's important to people. If it's, they're trying to lose weight for a high school reunion. Okay, so that's extrinsic.
Yeah.
So, that's something where you want to get them to a particular goal, but it's not something that's going to move the needle for them after that goal is met. So you have to find something about them that's going to make them say, okay, I hit this goal, but now I've got this other goal because I feel so much better than I did before. I'm more outgoing. I'm more social. I feel more comfortable in a public setting. And you wanted them to feel that. So that way, once that class reunion or that wedding or whatever is over with, that they've gotten so many other benefits that you can tap into so you can keep them going even after they hit that outer goal that really didn't mean that much, or it shouldn't have meant that much. And by then they realize that, through coaching. But initially it's all about trying to get to this particular goal. And then it's like they have no plan afterwards. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the coaching comes in, where you try and tell them like, hey, we can get you on a maintenance program afterwards. I mean, I don't need you to be, it's kind of like going to a chiropractor for the first time, and they want you there 3 times a week for a month. And then they'll talk about weaning you down, for maintenance and stuff like that. I mean, I believe in that. When it comes to something that you're starting, that's new, that's fresh, that's difficult, that is going to work you both, mind, body, and even spirit sometimes, more touch points is actually important in the beginning, more so than it is the farther you go along. And that's something that I encourage people to try to kind of gain their independence with their coaching programs, because I don't want them to think that I'm doing this just to try to make as much money off of them as I can till it's time to find the next client, make as much money off them as I can. This is about forming a relationship and forming something for them that's going to last a lifetime. So I don't do a whole lot of 6-week challenges. Like, let's see how much weight you can lose in 6 weeks. It's more like, let's see how much better you can feel after 6 weeks. And then it'll help you realize how much you want to keep doing this after 6 weeks, not just so I have 6-week testimonials to show off so I can sell another 6-week challenge. That's kind of what I'm about.
Definitely.
The other thing too, Justin, and I want you to speak a little bit about this, Kelsey. I want to get this in. He's also an acclaimed author. He's written how many books? 3 books?
Oh, wow.
3, yeah.
And I know the most recent one was Anxiety and Exercise, right?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
So I have a copy at my desk all the time. So it's called Are You Ready? And the subtitle, Finding Purpose and Direction When You're Feeling Busy and Overwhelmed. So it's basically, and it's funny because when I wrote it, obviously with the idea as a fitness coach, but as we're saying, if somebody who is in recovery read this book, all they have to do is slant it in their mind to their own addiction, whatever that is, and whatever purpose they're trying to find in what they want to be in the future for themselves and how they want to look at the world. It's basically, are you ready to start something new in your life? Are you ready to turn a corner? And how to get ready and how to be prepared so that whatever it is that you're going to tackle, you can say, okay, I'm good to go. I've given this a lot of thought. I've made the plan. Now I just got to work the plan, and that's what the book will help you to do.
That's awesome.
And actually, I even have a flip book version of that I would be happy to throw in the comments as well if people want to download a free version of the book. So never wrote the book for the purpose of trying to get money. It was just to try to help people to find a new start. So I mean, that wasn't even something that Mark and I talked about. I didn't even know he was going to be mentioning that, but I'll give a free flip book. That was easy to say, right?
Yeah.
So anybody who wants one, let me know, and in the comments of once this gets posted to YouTube, and I'll send it along for free. Anyone who wants it.
Yeah. And the thing about, a good coach, Justin, is, they push you,
Mm-hmm.
they want to bring out the best in you. And, you and I have talked about this when it comes to recovery, about satisfaction's the first step to failure, complacency is dangerous, all this stuff. So going into this particular calendar year, man, I felt really good about where I was at. In fact, you actually made a comment on a podcast. Be careful, Mark. You sound like you're satisfied. I don't know if you remember that or not, but you did. It was your little dig at me, right?
Oh, I would never dig at you, Mark. I don't know what
This
you're
dude
referencing.
creates a Facebook page, okay, and he puts a challenge out there: 365 workouts in 365 days, okay. And I thought that was like insane. And it's a closed group, and there's a number of people on there. And I'm like, man, that's, and then he started explaining it. Well, you can do lifting in the morning. You can go, I think it's a 20-minute walk or a 20-minute jog in the afternoon. That'll be 2 workouts in a day. You don't have to work out every day and so forth. And then you start seeing all these people like checking in, they're sharing their pictures and their workouts and stuff. There's people that are going for it, man.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? Hell, I can't get showed up, man. I'm a pretty competitive dude, so I got to go for it too. I'm going for it, and I'm on pace. Okay, my body's sore. I'm not gonna lie to you, but as good as I felt going into the year, I look at pictures, going into January 1st of 2025 to now. Man, that little push, that little nudge that he gave has helped a lot because my body's morphing even more, and I'm lifting even more than I was at the start of the year. With that motivation and seeing everybody's checking. And I'm human. So I mean, you get your days where you don't feel it or what have you.
Right.
And all of a sudden you check Facebook and so checked in and so. I'm like, oh man, I got to hit the friggin' gym. They're holding me accountable. So there's something to that. Him and I, we get up early in the morning. He's doing this coaching or what have you, but I mean, it is not uncommon that we're exchanging text, sometimes between 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the morning. He's
Yeah.
working with his clients and getting ready for his day, and I get in my workout pretty early because I start my regular job at 7 o'clock in the morning. So, like I said, it's been a great relationship that has been forged, through, like I said, an individual that's in recovery. And when we started talking and we just started talking about our beliefs and so forth, it's just incredible how everything lines up. The truth is, I didn't know anything about his adult life. Okay. I remember the kid that he described, okay, in high school. And when I found out he was a fitness coach, I was not gonna lie, okay. And then I saw pictures of him, and I mean, he doesn't even look like the individual I deal with, and it's like, holy crap! And that was motivation for me too. About couple of years ago, maybe 2, 3 years ago, better. So it's been a very relationship where we've learned from each other. And I just thought it would be good for him to be on the podcast. Yeah, we're going to be doing this project. I think that it's going to be good with everything that's going on out there right now. There's been a lot of people, that have asked, for help. I mean, honestly, it's sometimes overwhelming. I mean, I wake up in the morning and it is not uncommon that I'll have multiple messages on Messenger and some texts from people that are struggling pretty much on a daily basis at this point. So it's something that I think that we need to do to help people. Whether it's the eating side or whether it's the alcohol or drug side, you're helping somebody not die is what it comes down to.
Definitely.
I feel he feels that's his moral responsibility. I feel it's my moral responsibility. Different focuses, different areas.
I mean, you guys are talking about like helping people reclaim their lives and be excited. about getting out of bed in the morning. We kind of go participate in this world, right? And I think that's kind of where you're helping instill a sense of hope and belief that things can be and will be different, and that you as an individual have the ability to kind of take those steps that help really create the life that you want to be living for yourself. And I think that is incredibly powerful. And so, no, I think it's great work that you two guys are going to do. I like the plan and the project that you guys are working on. It sounds like it's going to be fantastic to help really support people, whatever they are struggling or feeling challenged with in the moment. They can help them kind of get back on the path that they want to be leading and living their life. And so we're getting to about that point of the episode, Kelsey, where we're about to call it a show, man. And so we're grateful that you're able to kind of join us here. Is there any parting wisdom you would like to leave us and the listeners with?
Just anything that you're trying to overcome starts with just one step, and then just taking pride in it. You know, so it doesn't matter how big, how small. The people that say, you know, I only have a half an hour to work out, so I'll just put off my workout till later because I normally work out for an hour. Don't put it off. Do that half an hour. You can do another half hour later if you want to, but a lot of times if we put it off, then we just don't do it. So get what you can when you can, or if you're not feeling that well, go in and put in a 70% effort, because 70% effort beats a 0 every single time. So just take a step forward, and then another, and then another. Doesn't matter how big the step is.
Cool.
Mark, any last words, my friend?
We're going to get you a shirt. The only thing is we're going to get you a polo because you don't wear anything except polos.
I mean, I can see you guys are out of mediums, huh? Yeah.
I'm growing, man. 360.
Oh, yeah. It's good, but this is a large, man. You know what I mean?
No, it was good. It was good to have Kelsey on. I'm glad we had him on.
Definitely.
No, I really appreciate the time, guys. To help you guys with your mission. I mean, it's an honor. So thank you so much.
Definitely. And we appreciate everybody tuning in and listening to these episodes. These episodes air on the 15th and the 30th, so feel free to tune in during those dates when new episodes are dropping. Again, Mark and I are always open to comments, so feel free to reach out, email us, let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about. If there's certain topics you want to hear us dive into or explore, by all means, feel free to share that information. We are open to all suggestions. And so, as always, we appreciate everybody taking the time to listen through and be with us on these episodes, and we look forward to seeing you all in the next episode here. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and you have a great and wonderful rest of the day, evening, wherever you are.
Thanks for joining us today on Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. If you're on the journey to find guidance and insights, subscribe now wherever you find your podcasts. Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery is an educational resource, not a substitute for medical or therapeutic advice. The opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are not necessarily those of NAMI DuPage. Go to namidupage.org/podcast for links to past episodes, show notes, and to submit a question or topic ideas for a future episode. Until next time, be well.